All right. It's time to turn my mic on. Time to turn the mic on. Video started. It's Wednesday night. It's 7 p.m. We'll give it a second or two, see if we can get a couple folks to join us here on the podcast this evening. But it is time for the South Carolina NORML Cannabis Conversation. As you all know, NORML stands for National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. We're going to, like I say, give this a couple of minutes. Let's see if we can get things kind of filled in the room here a little bit. I think we're going to have some fun. Got a surprise for you a little bit later in the podcast. I already have trivia questions picked out, selected. So, it's time. I see a couple of folks coming in, joining me now. So I appreciate y'all. There we go. Josh is in with us. Smoke them if you got them. Me, I need a little water. My water bottle has a NORML sticker on it. All right. Welcome. Let me click. Where am I? A little befuddled tonight, folks, as you know, flying by the seat of my pants. Have some interesting notes from a meeting last Thursday on federal level stuff. We'll see how well I can decipher these notes. They're kind of cryptic, and they're my notes. That's why they're cryptic. All right, let me go ahead and click this other little banner on here because I see it's 7:02, and that's about the time I really like to kind of kick things off. It's giving folks a minute to join us here in the room, and that is to state that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Also, at this time in the podcast, I do kind of like to remind everybody to follow us on social media. We did tend to post a little bit more on our Facebook page at South Carolina NORML, or probably SC NORML. Search it, it should show up. Instagram and Twitter are both at South Carolina NORML, and search on our YouTube for South Carolina NORML's page. You might find too, pick the one with the higher subscribers, and then like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you can be informed when our live broadcast or live podcasts are preparing to start. What other buttons do I have? Oh, that one there. Also, don't forget to visit our website at scnormal.org or normalsc.org. Click the About drop-down menu. You'll find a link to our sponsors. Please support our sponsors as they help support what we do here, along with our members and other donors. All right, that's kind of it for the intro stuff that I can think of at the moment. I'm going to click over to this one here, intro and agenda time. My name is Scott Weldon. I am the Executive Director of South Carolina's chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, and we are here to talk about trying to reform marijuana laws in South Carolina. I want to say hi, Joey, because Joey says, hi, everybody. Welcome, Joey. Thank you for joining us here on the podcast. For our agenda this evening, a little bit of a mix, a little bit of a surprise. It is the second Wednesday of the month where we normally do our public monthly meeting, where we basically our breakdown on that is talk a little bit about what's going on at the federal level legislatively, what's going on state level legislatively, chapter business, coming events, stuff like that. If we had committee reports kind of fall into that. So we're going to kick it off, talk a little bit about federal in just a moment. Also, about halfway through, I'm going to try and get through the state and federal stuff. Federal stuff is going to take more time. State's going to be pretty quick and not a lot's going on at our state level. So I will want to kind of get through that stuff, be done by our second trivia question, to have a special guest come in and visit with us a little bit at 7:30. And I'm not sure where we're going with the conversation on that this evening. I don't have any kind of questions set up for them or anything, but somebody we've talked about, or their business anyway, that we've talked about on past podcasts. I'm going to kind of keep that on the hush hush at the moment until we invite them in to the studio. And then we'll finish up with some of our coming events and or coming plans. I do apologize to any of you that are on our email list. It came out pretty late, came out after noontime today. I forgot about it. Our board secretary told me a few days ago she had it ready. I just had to do my little director's corner. Some exciting news coming up with that if you did happen to read it, but I apologize for it coming out a bit late. If you're not on our email list, please visit our website, scnormal.org. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. You'll see a link down there on how to sign up for our newsletter. Or, I don't know, can you scan a QR code from video like that? That should take you to our kind of a link menu, and you can find our sign up there as well. With that, I guess it is time for the first cannabis question of the evening, first cannabis trivia question of the evening. As you know, our trivia questions are a sponsorable portion of our program. If your business would like to be mentioned on the program, you may sponsor a trivia question. Reach out to us through our website, the contact page on our website, and we can give you some more information on that. But let me kick this off with our first one. It is law category. Category is law. And it is a 40-point question if you're keeping score. Let me get my light over here so I can see a little bit better. Operation Green Air targeted marijuana smugglers using what commercial air freight company? Law category, 40-point question. These are from the game Stoner Trivia, just so you know. Operation Green Air targeted marijuana smugglers using what commercial air freight company? Would that be Southwest, Federal Express, JetBlue, or Virgin? Again, the four top options are Southwest, Federal Express, JetBlue, or Virgin. Again, these are sponsorable options if you want to promote your business or just want to be a donor and get a shout out. You're always welcome to contact us on that. I'm going to find the next banner in my button list, give you an answer to this one. Again, law category, 40-point question. Operation Green Air targeted marijuana smugglers using what commercial air freight company? I'm going to take a peek and comment, see if anybody has answers. Is it Southwest, Federal Express, JetBlue, or Virgin? Give you a second to type in your answer if you have one. I need a little No, I don't. Not really. All right. Well, hit me with the answer on that one. That answer is Federal Express. I'm going to have to do a little Google search on Operation Green Air. I don't think I've ever heard of that one. All right. For the moment, I want to tuck that back here in the box so I don't get it mixed up with the other questions. And go back and turn that off. All right. I do not have banner set up, so I'm just going to kind of rip to it. As you know, our public meetings are generally about what's going on legislatively and then locally. This is probably 6-day-old information, so I apologize for old info. Senate in session this week. That's actually kind of new because this came out last week. They said it comes out next week, but we are in the next week. So Senate is in session. I'm sorry, Senate was in session last week. House is expected back in session this week. So, time to, again, get on the horn, get on your on the action alerts out on federal's or out of national NORML's site, and support whatever they're working on right now. I know there's a couple of things in the works. Oh, hey, look at that. Miggy's here. Hey, Miggy, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Really, I always appreciate when you show up. I have a note underneath session starting about funding focus. I don't know exactly what that is, but I believe one of the focuses they are looking at is in funding in some of this legislation. As we've talked about before, they're discussing the Safe Harbor Act and of course the Senate banking markup. We want to keep pressure on them for that. I'm seeing, boy, I have really bad notes. Sounds like they're planning on getting COA, the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, reintroduced by the end of this year. And they are planning to look at, I think I mentioned before, there was some hint that they might be, relooking at that tax structure that was in that one. Seemed to be pretty high, I think topping out at around 25% on like anything over $20 million after the 5th year, blah, 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 some progressive structure it had. So they are actually looking at in the rewrites on that before introduction at the end of the year, addressing those tax structures. That was probably one of the biggest feedbacks that they got on that. Looks like in the House, Safe Banking has 59 co-sponsors. I have a question mark after the committee. I don't know what committee that one's in offhand. And yeah, we actually had a whole program on safe banking last night. But Miggy mentioned, don't forget to talk about the rescheduling hoopla. I do have a couple of marijuana moment blah, blah, blah articles up here on my screen, and I'm going to share them with you, at least see if I can share them with you real quick. First one, let me pop this one up here. Screen share window. We'll go with that one. There it goes. DEA head about the Biden letter, quote unquote, directing marijuana rescheduling review. They mentioned that they misspoke. And if you read through the article on that one, it talks about, come on, let me hide that. The head of the DEA misspoke when she said President Biden sent a letter to top agencies directing marijuana scheduling a review, according to Justice Department. In essence, what she's basically talking about was, there were no records for the request because people saw this and said, "Oh, I want a copy of that letter." Did FOIA requests on it, and they're saying basically there was no separate letter. And apparently they were just referencing the public statement from the president announcing the scheduling review directive that he had done a while back. So there was no letter. Of course, DEA, not fully honest on the way they speak. But I wanted to pop that out. And then I did happen to see while I was looking for this article, another one. Let me see if I can keep these poppers from popping up in front of me. 14 GOP congressional lawmakers tell DEA to keep marijuana on Schedule 1 and reject the top health agency's recommendation. I just saw it. I haven't scrolled through this article yet, and I really wish I kind of had a little more time to, but I am not going to spend too much time on this stuff this evening. We can probably do this in another program. Come on. Okay, it looks like here in the letter we could find out who all the legislators are. I couldn't tell you how many of them are doctors, lawyers, scientists, lawyers probably more so than anything. And the other thing I did happen to mention, we were talking about the banking Act. Senate Committee Chair plans marijuana banking vote announcement in next few days. That article came out 1 day ago. So there's activity. There is activity. The other thing I have in my notes, let's see if I can find this one. Oh, I wanted to mention that. Yeah, there has been discussion on some of the descheduling. Where's my notes? I have descheduling written down. Some of the descheduling legislation bills they're all being discussed. I don't know much more than that, and I haven't reached out to my local Congresswoman Nancy Mace to ask her what's going on with hers. I know last I spoke to her, and I want to say that was probably back in April, May, whenever she opened her new regional office. She was planning a light version, whatever that means, probably less social equities built into it. But let me kind of take a peek. I see there's some conversation going. I'm kind of missing here. A couple communications between some of our viewers. All right. I'm not going to share a whole lot of the conversation there between Meg and Josh, but if you do want to come out and visit for any for any particular occasion, we won't be open, and it might be a long time to see that here. We have announced that have scheduled our lobby day and rally at the State House here in South Carolina. That'll be January 24th in Columbia, South Carolina. So we're starting to put things out for that. We're trying to find as many of the cannabis law sponsors in the state to come out and speak for us at our press conference in the State House lobby prior to the rally. So, if you have no other reason to come to South Carolina besides a visit, this will, and just it's a great place to visit. Come visit the beaches out in the mountains. Great state to visit. Can't say I wouldn't want to live there because I do like living there. I just don't like the marijuana laws, the fact that they criminalize people. Anyway, let me roll this back here just a moment. I wanted to mention other things on that, and we're not going to have any real discussion on state stuff. But I saw this one piece of legislation. I'm going to Google it right here while you're on with me. The Stop Pot Act has been introduced. There we go. Where's the best place to look at this one? Marijuana Moment is probably the best place to look at this one. I don't know if we talked about this one the other week or not. GOP congressman, this came out 2 weeks ago, bill would cut federal funding for states and tribes that legalize marijuana. I remember sharing the link almost the same day, if not the same, a couple hours or close to after the announcement of the North Carolina Indian tribe that was looking to legalize on their reservation. If I'm correct exactly on that. But basically what this is doing, the Stop Pot Act is calling to withhold 10% of federal highway funding to jurisdictions in which the purchase or public possession of marijuana or for recreational purposes is lawful. Now, I don't see this going anywhere, but it's something to kind of take note of. If it would happen to move forward, that could put definitely a cut into some of the funding for the highways here in South Carolina. And as you know, they're not in the best shape, many of them to begin with. I think all states have roadway infrastructure problems, but you know what I'm saying, especially with bridge failures that you hear about, things like that. And it would, to me though, if there's something like this would pass, it would be more the reason to decriminalize. That way you're not legalizing it, but you're not, vilifying or at least doing as much harm to people that were caught with simple cannabis possession. Oh, sorry, I see a lot of these ads. I've been looking at scooters. But anyway, I did want to bring that one up here. What else do I have? I think I mentioned the CARE Act. There's a housing funding bill. The housing funding bill, I believe Comer, if I have the name right here, is looking to, in the housing funding bill, remove some of the harms, some of the restrictions on people that have a record for simple cannabis possession. We talk all the time about the residual consequences that follow you along after you've done paid your debt to society for simple cannabis possession, or I guess some of these are federal charges or apply. But either way, for your cannabis crimes, you can't get public housing assistance. You can't get education assistance. A lot of stuff going on with that. Let me look at my time here. We're kind of ticking. So that's something I'm going to get a little bit more info on for you, Comer, on the housing funding bill. Let me see if there's any mention of this down here. And the last but not least was the PREPARE Act. I don't think I talked about that. No summary on that one. House Bill 2598. Let me back up here 1 second. Was there a Senate version of that? Hickenlooper came out 2023, May. Okay. To establish a commission on the federal regulation of cannabis to study a prompt and plausible pathway to federal regulation for cannabis and for purposes. Anyway, I'm not going to chat much more about federal stuff at the moment. I do want to mention to you, do go out to National's website, NORML.org. There are some good links out there. We talked about Paul Armentano's interview about this rescheduling, descheduling. He's got some great points to make on that. I wish I could make them as well as he does. But I'm better off sending you out to their site and have you kind of watch them from there. And state news. Not so much state as regional, local news, I guess. And that's kind of where we're going to be going here in the next couple of moments after we. I didn't want to bring this up on screen. Let me turn this off. After we do our next little trivia. But give me a moment before we get into our next trivia. And then we're going to bring on our special guest. Hopefully in a minute or two. I see them come back into the room. I saw they're checking out a little bit earlier. Okay, I want to do this. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. Okay. All right, I kind of think I'm prepped for our next little bit. Hang on to your hats, but in the meantime, let us get our next trivia question out of the way, because I'm hoping to bring our next guest in by 7:30. So let me go ahead with this one. Banners, buttons, stuff like that. Boom. Trivia question 2. This is a history category, 40-point question. The kind of questions come from Stoner Trivia. What geographic region did the Rastafarian region evolve from? Peru, Ethiopia, or Jamaica? History category, 40-point question. What geographic region did the Rastafarian region evolve from? Was it Peru, Ethiopia, or Jamaica? Again, if you'd like to sponsor trivia questions, that is an option. Reach out to us through our website through the contact page, and we'll send you more information. Back to our find the buttons again answer. History category 480 point question. What geographic region did the Rastafarian region evolve from? Peru, Ethiopia, or Jamaica? We take a peek and comment, see if we have any answers up there yet. Miggy says Jamaica. Stoner Trivia says Peru. I'm sorry, it does not. It says Ethiopia. It apparently evolved from Ethiopia. Very cool. Again, I can't verify any of these. I try to just blame it on the company if they're wrong. If they're right, there's some good information out there. All right. That was our second question. It looks like we're a little bit early for being done with that. Usually try and get that done a couple minutes after. But again, we enjoy these. A lot of fun. And quite informative, to be quite honest with you. Let me look at my buttons and banners here. Turn that off. There you go. All right. I'm going to, I guess, start this intro kind of in a little bit indirect way. Pop open my share screen again. And I don't know how well y'all can see this. I'm sharing on the screen a letter from the Columbia Police Department. It went out to owners and or management. And it has to do with CBD, Delta 8, Delta 10, isomers, the Alan Wilson, Attorney General Alan Wilson opinion letter, blah, 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 blah. And we've also talked recently about a company, Crowntown Cannabis, up in Columbia that was shut down, I think, for having the word, well, part of what we heard is they weren't allowed to reopen until the word cannabis was removed from the front window, and they've just been like really being harassed. We happen to have the owner of the company with us this evening, Michael Sims, and I'm going to bring him into the podcast here in just a second and let you ask your questions. And that, well, first I'm going to ask him to introduce himself a little bit, but let me start by clicking the button, bring Mike in. I'm going to sort of hide this other screen for a moment. And Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep. Got you live.
Can you hear me okay?
Right. I can hear you fine. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time. Maggie said sees the letter and comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate
it. Oh, you're quite welcome. So tell me, how long ago did you get this letter?
What a nightmare it's been. Can you hear me okay? I feel like there's a little bit of a lag.
Get a little lag, but I can hear you okay.
Can you hear me? All right, good. I'll just continue and hopefully it goes okay. But yeah, I am Mike Sims. I'm one of the co-owners of Crowntown Cannabis. We have several stores throughout North and South Carolina, Wells, and expanding into Virginia. Our Columbia store in 5 Points was our most successful store, doing the best out of all of our stores. And ultimately, we've been targeted since January. And, the short of it all, I have an employee facing a 20-year charge for a federally legal product. And, ultimately, we've been targeted over and over again about our name, our signage. Even though the signage had been approved by the city twice, they ultimately revoked our business license without warning and said we were conducting illegal activities and failed to remediate the situation. And of course, getting attorneys involved and everything else, we ultimately removed cannabis from our windows and our signage. But in their own letter, it says we can't do that legally until cannabis becomes legal in South Carolina. We've been targeted in so many ways. They try to remove our business license. We have employees facing charges. And, ultimately, we've also been asked now to remove Delta 8, Delta 10, and other products. The scary part about that letter is where it says other isomers. So I think they're going to continue to do as they've done and kind of make it up as they go and ban as they see fit. We're currently not allowed to have flower in our store, and we're also not allowed to have a lot of the products that we were allowed to have and that is federally legal ultimately. So, this latest push by Columbia PD, led by SLED and, the Sheriff's Department, we got quite the battle on our hands. So, ultimately what I'm figuring out, my stores are based in North Carolina, but, we fought similar things in North Carolina and won. And ultimately we came together as a unit and unity and, became our own lobbyist and fought in North Carolina and overcame the flower ban and ban of any other products. A lot of purists in this industry, including myself, I love marijuana. I love cannabis. You and I talked about it. I don't really love the synthetic or semi-synthetics of cannabis, but ultimately under the federal law, they are legal. And there's been now 2 federal cases that went before a federal court and a federal judge, one in Texas and one in Arkansas. And both of those have successfully been won. And ultimately, the one in Arkansas, the judge went as far to say it's absolutely illegal and unconstitutional to make something illegal in the state that is ultimately federally legal. So, we are now asking for everybody to come together as business owners, come together as cannabis advocates in South Carolina, and help join the fight in numbers and, show them that we are fighting for this plant. We're not going away. And, if they want to ban things, do it in the right way and create laws to ban them and not opinion letters or coming around targeting certain businesses only throughout the state. And, just trying to kill the industry by 1,000 paper cuts, if you will. Am I still coming through okay, Scott?
Yeah,
Awesome.
I turned my mic off because the voice activation seemed like causing more lag. So yes, I turned mine off for the time being. But I want to mention to our listeners, our viewers, that this is one of the reasons why NORML does what it does. As Mike and I were talking a little bit earlier, there are groups that are supporting medical marijuana legislation moving through our legislature here in the state, but that really doesn't address these issues that have to do with hemp and the hemp-derived cannabinoids. And here at South Carolina NORML, we are all about nobody should be arrested for simple cannabis possession.
Right.
And that includes, these other isomers, the Delta 8s, the Delta 10s. Again, Mike and I talked about it. I'm not necessarily a fan of these other things. I'm old school. I like flower. As we've talked about on the program, many a times I visualize the future of cannabis as being that very similar to the craft brewing market, as being that craft grower and producer market for cannabis. And I know I dream big, but that's the way I'd like to see it. And we've seen letters like we see actually presented on our podcast, a letter very similar to this from North Charleston. Again, talking about the same basic kind of thing. I haven't read through this letter that you received yet, Mike, word for word. So I got to kind of go and compare them a little bit to see. But they are, again, basing a lot of this on that opinion letter that was sent out by Attorney General Alan Wilson a couple of years back at the request of SLED, which ironically, it's found that in discovery, that letter to request this opinion letter from SLED was requested as part of discovery in another case, and they refused to turn it over or produce it, to the point where Chief Mark Keel, head of SLED, has been fined over $11,000, saying, in violation of discovery rules. And then he takes it back to court saying, well, he wants his name taken off it because he is not SLED, and they went, no, you're not going to duck your responsibility. You stay on the bill for this one. That was a couple of weeks ago, last I heard. So I'd probably be pretty sure that he still hasn't turned over the documentation. And not turning it over to me is kind of telling, but I'd really like to see what's in that request letter. How it's asked, how can we demonize our citizenry here in South Carolina even more?
Yeah.
With that said, we talked a little bit about what South Carolina NORML has been going through, our kind of growing pains since VP stepped down from our board, and our sort of refocus. One of the refocuses being get the word out with about what South Carolina NORML is doing, about trying to change laws. There are lots of pieces of legislation proposed in our legislature. Unfortunately, most of that are marijuana related. House Rep Dion Tedder's bill, the smell bill that we talked about, we had him on a couple weeks back talking about that bill, is a prime example. There are these bills there that were looking to help protect citizenry of South Carolina, because they are not sponsored and supported and introduced by members of the ruling party of our state. We are a trifecta Republican legislature, and most of the pro-cannabis bills or cannabis reform bills are sponsored by Democrats. And so I always feel they'll never catch a breath of air or see the light of day. They'll never be considered in committee until we can get Republicans to sort of support and or sponsor these bills. And so there's one of our uphill challenges in South Carolina. And so one of our goals for our upcoming lobby day in January is to gather all of these legislators that have sponsored any type of marijuana legislation, reform legislation, to speak out about their bill and about why they're sponsoring these bills. Because I think that's, I'll be honest with you. Last January, I had a wild idea. I was going to find Republican legislators that were going to come out and speak for marijuana law reform at our lobby day, and I failed miserably. As you know, it was me, it was VP, it was Kristen. That was our speakers, the three of us here on our NORML board. We did not get a single Republican legislator to come out and speak for cannabis law reform here in South Carolina. I don't know why I'm so disappointed. I mean, I should have known I was going to fail miserably, but I failed freaking miserably. So we're going back to kind of what worked for us and find the legislators that are actually supporting our cause and support them. Similarly, we're going to reach out to businesses that support our cause, and we're going to, and that we already probably support. Many of our folks and our followers and supporters in the Columbia area may already be, shoppers in your store, maybe customers. But as we talked about on the program not too long ago, we're starting a new program, Spread the Word about South Carolina NORML. We really believe that we want to turn this January lobby day and rally into a thing. I was challenged on, I believe it was Twitter, that I couldn't get people to show up, showed up on some video that they were sharing about this is the kind of support we need here in South Carolina. And I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, I wish. And then I went, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Let's see what we can do again. As I've said here before, I'm the kind of guy who will shout at the rain until it stops. Well, I'm kind of the same guy. I'm going to shout at the legislator until they change their cannabis laws. I don't know if the shouting will ever make a difference, but eventually the changes will come. And so we want to include businesses. We're really glad that Mike joined us here tonight and is sharing his story. Next week on the program, actually, we're going to be officially announcing the relaunch or the official launch of our Vilified podcast. We're breaking down a couple of different categories that we're going to be trying to tell the stories on, but our Vilified podcast is going to be a pre-recorded podcast. It's going to try to tell the stories of businesses like this that have been vilified by law enforcement and basically the justice system here in South Carolina. We want to tell the stories. I tell people about this one a lot, and they never thought it was a thing. Young moms, young parents, young families get tested by Children Protective Services, and they have cannabis in their system. If a mom's pregnant and she tests positive for cannabinoids, and they can't prove that she's taking high THC anything. It can be, and many of them, they call me, they say, what can we do? And I have to redirect them to possibly the ACLU of South Carolina, because we don't have lawyers, we don't have that capacity. But they're saying, I went to such and such a local shop, got some CBD product, and I happen to know the shop they're talking about, and I know that I've been in them, and I know that they're, staying within the law, but they're testing for, cannabis, and they don't really care what cannabis they get when they test. And now they're charging these young pregnant moms with child abuse and young mothers who have already had their children with child neglect or endangerment. It's just freaking nuts. So those are some of the stories we want to tell. Other stories we want to tell is anybody who's ever been arrested for simple cannabis possession and the residual consequences that they've had to sort of deal with that. Lastly on that list, especially since Rep. Tedder was here with us and he requested these stories on people that have been stopped by law enforcement. Law enforcement claims smell of cannabis. Nothing's found, and they're let go. We'd like to hear these stories. How are people being targeted because police are claiming to smell cannabis, which they very well could be. Illegal hemp smells an awful lot like illegal marijuana. I am a little bit rambling. Sorry about that, Mike. I don't want to sort of run you, but I do want to definitely invite you at some point as we move on to share your story on our Vilified podcast, because what we'll be doing with those is trying to structure those in a pre-recorded manner. We can go in and do a little bit of editing for content value or whatever, and then we can post those on our YouTube playlist for just those type of stories. And that'll be a great access point then for our legislators, where we can share the links to these different stories. And I don't know a whole lot about it, but we could probably even make shorts out of certain comments and to sort of try and promote what we want to do in South Carolina versus what our government wants to do to us.
I like that. Yeah.
All
so,
right.
I think that's a great movement. We too have a lot of stories like that. People being evicted from their homes, their apartments or whatever, because of the smell of cannabis by using legal hemp products. Moms and parents facing charges for child endangerment for just having cannabis around the children, even legal things. So, South Carolina is probably one of the most strict cannabis states in the country, even in the hemp industry. And honestly, it's a vague lack of policy and selective enforcement at its worst. And, what they're doing is absolutely wrong. The reason they have the biggest problem with our industry and the hemp industry is because ultimately it kills their probable cause because of that hemp smell. You can't prove it was hemp versus marijuana or vice versa. And in the same fashion, I have an employee now facing a 20-year charge over a federally legal product. And we've been compliant with the police department at all times. We actually share the parking lot with Columbia Police Department. They're in our backyards. We've had them in the store, and consulted with them continuously from the day we opened. And we have about 6 lawyers on retainer and that we pay almost constantly. And, we were under advisement of attorneys. And still, I have an employee facing 20 years charge. Hopefully, luckily, we'll get that dropped. But, there's rumors out there about things that we were doing and not doing, that we were selling marijuana and we were selling products that made people sick. And all of that is just simply untrue. We're a very reputable company. We've been around for over 6 years now, and no bad anybody ever getting sick, hurt, or otherwise. And I'm a cannabis advocate. I kind of were shunned for the legalization movement. A lot of people think we're impeding the legalization movement, and I see it as we need to all come back as one, where we're now divided between medical, recreational, and hemp. We all kind of have our own bias and our own agendas. Where I feel like if we would all come back together as one and fight together, just showing up in numbers and showing, law enforcement and lawmakers that we are law abiding, tax paying, job working citizens that are responsible parents, responsible citizens. And, we like to use cannabis like most like to use a glass of wine to relax after work, or, to focus, or whatever, to not be on prescription drugs. And, honestly, financially, it probably makes more sense for us just to close shop in South Carolina and not look back. But, I have employees that are like family members to me. And, I see these other shop owners and people trying to enter the industry, and what you guys are trying to do on the lawmaker front. And I don't want to give up the fight. I want to continue to fight. I want to join any efforts you guys got. If I'm available to show up for any of the days you have planned, I'll be glad to do so. Anybody that's watching and wants to get involved with what we're doing, right now we are forming with some other organizations across the country, and ultimately just trying to get everyone to come together. I don't care what group you represent, or ultimately we need to get this plant legalized, adult legalization, adult access. And treating yourself with a natural product should not end up in jail time, like you guys are right on about. So I was just looking through here to try to find that email. But yeah, so we have a lot of South Carolina business owners. We have some attorneys. We have some lobbyists that's joining, and we're also kind of we're getting advice from the attorneys that have fought this nationally, and things to do. So really, just trying to get everybody together on the same page. Try to fight this the best way possible, the legal way. Trying to get some of our veteran customers, some of the people that use these products to get through medical issues, to come forward, tell your story so we can share it with everyone. Um, it's a lot, but that email for anybody watching, if anybody wants to join the fight, or, be part of that, it is hemp help sc, like South Carolina, at gmail.com. And that's hemp help sc at gmail.com. I am a business owner in South Carolina. I've reached out to a lot of business owners. I don't see this as me versus anyone else. I don't see anyone as competition. I see all of us as responsible stewards of the plant, and we're on the cusp of legalization once and for all. I feel like this is the last push by South Carolina law enforcement and lawmakers to keep this plant illegal, to keep privatized prisons full, to incarcerate innocent people, to pick the low hanging fruit, and ultimately to keep the courts and the prisons full over a natural plant. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think if we could get this organization together and others across the state, and even others outside of the state that like to do business in South Carolina, if we could set this legal precedence and stop this from happening, we wouldn't have to worry about it ever again in South Carolina. And currently, we do have legal access to the same Delta 9 products that you'll find in legalized states, just in smaller milligrams. And if the police and the lawmakers have their way, they'll continue to twist and turn what the hemp bill from 2018 says, and clearly defines what's legal and not. They continue to twist those words and create laws, or not even laws, create opinions instead of laws, instead of going through the proper jurisdictions and the proper channels to actually create a law, because they know it wouldn't fly because we're federally legal. So this is probably the biggest fight we got in the country, as well as in the state. And what is decided in our case will definitely affect everyone across the country. So if anyone just wants to be involved, tell their story, offer any kind of guidance on people that might want to donate. As you can imagine, these lawyers do not come cheap. And, anyone that wants to help out will be glad to help. And I would be glad to help you guys as well. So thanks again for having me on that. That freeze up on you, Scott? You still there? I think I might have lost you, Scott. You there? Anyway, looks like we lost Scott. But yeah, so again, if anybody watching wants to get involved, please reach out to me. And that's Help Hemp South Carolina, or SC, Help Hemp SC at gmail.com.
That never fails to piss me off. I apparently wasn't logged in properly on my phone to kind of try and save that, but my main computer, my desktop computer, dies, just freezes up multiple times a day and decides to restart. I think this is the third time today, and I restarted it right before we started the program, just to hopefully make sure it wouldn't do it during the program. So I apologize. Looks like we lost Mike. Um, Great conversation. I don't know. I think I still got a couple of folks here on the call with me. Again, I apologize for my machine locking up. We will get Mike back, hear more about that story going on in Colombia. We are in the process of sending him out our advocacy packs that we've been telling you all about. It has our QR code, nobody should go to jail card in it, our brochure with the Freedom card in it, and a bunch of stickers. They're going to be putting them up in the store and spreading them around their community there. If you're in a business or if you're shop a local business, you may want to ask them to sign on to our website and request a business version of the advocacy pack. We include some more brochures in there that they can pass out to the community, and some more cards where looks like we even have Mike coming back to join us here. Give me a second. So we are sending that stuff out to Mike's store. Again, some of our QR code. Nobody should go to prison or be arrested for cannabis. A bunch of our stickers, a bunch of our brochures with the, I'm going to say it again, NORML Foundation Freedom Card, protect your rights. So if you happen to be in that community, stop on by. If you're not in that community, stop by your local hemp and CBD shop and see if they want to hop onto our website, stnormal.org, and order up their own advocacy, spread the word advocacy packs. Again, if it's for a business, we'll send them a little bit extra than compared to what's in the one for our individual advocates. Trying to spread the word. We're going to try to promote this lobby day and rally on the 24th of January. We really, all right. I don't know if anybody can hear me now.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you, Scott. Can you hear me?
Testing. Okay, it's on there. I'm going to see if I can switch back to these other headphones.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Testing.
I can hear you.
Okay, now they're working.
There you go.
I forgot what. Hello. I forgot. Oh, lobby day. We're ready to try and get the turnout for lobby day. For businesses that are in the cannabis industry, get out there. And so, as Mike was saying earlier, we need to try and unite across all the different sort of, as VP used to call it, little buckets of groups. The medical people, they're looking to support the patients, that little bucket of patients. The veterans groups looking to support that bucket of patients, and us looking to support the general public, especially our young people. Most arrests happen between the age of like 18 and 25. Protect our young people for simple cannabis possession arrests. And it's a challenge. I agree with Mike. We need to sort of unify as best we can. It is a challenge for sometimes the groups, especially the medical groups aren't always willing or open to unifying with NORML because the NORML name scares a lot of our legislators. The picture of a marijuana leaf, like on Mike's sweatshirt tonight, scares legislators to death. To the point where, like, national even changed from a leaf to a little icon. For the soccer moms, as they put it, they're kind of inclusive to the soccer moms. A hops flower and all the beer commercials and stuff, that's okay. But a cannabis flower, all of a sudden they're scared out of their pants.
Or just the word cannabis, even.
Or just the word cannabis. I mean, and we try and use the word cannabis because that is the botanical term. Marijuana is my understanding, a made up, demonized, word to try and scare the white folks back in the early 30s.
Ultimately a racist word too. So I mean, most people don't realize that, but yeah, absolutely used to demonize and politicize and villainize this plant. Yep.
So that's why they always seem to like marijuana.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, the reefer madness.
Sad to say, we live in a state that is still deeply, steeped in reefer madness. So I am going to kind of try and wrap things up. I see we're at 7:59. We're usually pretty timely. Mike, I want to thank you so much for joining me. Thanks. I am going to be back in touch. I've got a pack already halfway ready for you here. I just have to find a box and stuff. Folks, reach out if you're in the Columbia area. We've been having a tough time finding a place to sort of focus your advocacy in Columbia. We're going to try and say focus at Crown Town.
Yeah, we would be glad to host an event or a meeting at our store at any time as well. Gladly, without a doubt.
Excellent. We will definitely keep that in mind. With that, I'm going to kind of remind everybody that we will be back again next Wednesday, 7 p.m. I'm hoping to do an official announcement of our Vilified program and have some better structure about that. In the meantime, follow us on social media, contact your legislators, and support cannabis. And we will see you next Wednesday night. Have a nice one.